I'm live. Hello, boys and girls. Sorry for the slightly late start this evening. I was in a boxing class and I couldn't leave because at the end of the class, everybody was doing sparring, and I didn't want to leave on the time when the class was supposed to end because it would be like, oh, I have to go and do a Google Hangout now. And they'd be like, yeah, you just don't want to get pulled into some sparring and get your clock punched. So I had to stay because the laws of machismo and macho manliness required that I stay. I was firing up the Q&A app now. If for tonight, if you want to ask me a question, please don't try and write comments on YouTube. It didn't work last time, and it was frustrating for me to have to bounce in between the screens and try and see it on YouTube. So please just stick to using the Q&A app and watching on the Google Plus page. I will try and use it properly. Today we're going to be looking at the possibility that codependency or people pleaser syndrome is context specific. To give this a context, there is academic research out there that indicates that narcissism and narcissistic personality disorder can be context specific. Let me just check that my sound is on. 1, 2. I'm not like last time I started and then I was just talking. There was no sound. So we're going to look. So narcissism, apparently, according to some of the research that was done, can be context specific, meaning that a person in a certain set of circumstances could develop very strong narcissistic traits within a very short period of time based on changes in lifestyle and patterns. The only example I can think of, and the only thing that springs to my mind, is if somebody becomes enormously successful too quickly, or very, very famous very, very quickly, and then it's like when you raise a fish that's supposed to live on the bottom of the sea up too high and it explodes. Marine biologist pointed out to me that I'd use that analogy in another video. The fish doesn't explode. It's the air sac above the spine that controls how it floats and what depth it can go to and how high it goes up and down, which it can control. It like fills the air sac up and then releases it depending on whether it wants to go up and down. That's the thing that bursts. So there you go. So I've been on for 4 minutes. I've taught you about marine biology. It's like always teaching, giving value. Okay, I'm going to do this by answering an email, and then I'll get around to the questions, and then hopefully I'll be able to invite some people on to have a chat with me. If you do that and you do want to talk to me, quickly look at Max. Max. Hey, Maxie. What's this then? Maxie. Max, look. Yay. If you do want to join the Hangout and you do want to talk, just remember that everything you say is public. If you want to cover your face or change your name or something, you've got to do that in your settings. Don't turn your camera on, and it then gets uploaded to YouTube automatically, and then it stays there. So if you do or say anything or ask me a question about something that's weird, it's in the public domain. Okay, I'm going to answer. Yeah, see, somebody's already asked for Max in the question and answer. I'm just going to go through these questions real quick, and then I'm going to leave that, do the email, do my little bit about what I think about the subject, and then I'll come back to the Q&As. Lisa N just says, Max, question mark, question mark. I just said that to him. Max, you're famous. You're more important than I am, Max. You are an important person with opinions. What is it, Max? What is it? Max stares into your soul. He is watching you. His ears are moving. Max, that was intense, dude. Good boy. There's a question here that says, is cluster B personality disorder defined as an actual mental illness? That comes from Dennis. Yes, according to the DSM, to the American psychiatric model, which is the one that on this subject I subscribe to, that I use. Yeah, it is actually defined as a mental illness, if you like, a proper personality disorder. Okay. Right. Katie says, dog therapy is a thing, you know? Yeah, no, I saw that years ago. The thing I saw was they were working with criminals and recidivism and stopping criminals from getting back into jail. And they were teaching criminals, they were giving criminals dogs in jail, and they would give the dog somebody to look after, somebody to take care of, to discipline and to train them. And it became an analogy or a metaphor for training the inner self, for training the disciplining and loving the self. And apparently it really helped. It really, really worked. I'm sure if it was Max that was their psychiatrist, he would help them enormously. G says, I'm not complaining, I'm just passing the time. I'm totally grateful you do this. I don't know what you're talking about. He looks cute, I know. Okay. Oh, for some reason, the Cure song Grinding Halt is running through my head as I wait for this hangout. What a great song, and sorry for taking up valuable question time. It's so boring to just wait. That's the problem. Yes, and mentioning great bands like the Cure is always a good thing. Okay, I'm going to get into this email now, and we'll talk about, can codependency be context specific in the same way that narcissistic personality disorder apparently can. I thought it was a good email, very interesting. Obviously, the gentleman who sent it in to me has chosen to remain anonymous, and I'm not going to mention who it is. Okay. Hi, Richard. I really appreciate what you're putting out into the world. I've been going through your covert narcissism course videos, and as you keep stating within them, the concepts you're putting forward about complex PTSD and its origins are quite confronting, to say the least. This is an aside. Yes, a lot of the stuff that's in the course, particularly as it relates to CPTSD, is confrontational, because I find that works. I think that's what we need when you're doing CPTSD and narcissistic abuse type recovery. I can't do it in a non-confrontational way. However, I'm about to do the exercises and consider the fact that my mother or father might have had some narcissistic tendencies. One thing I would like your thoughts on, though, I want to know your professional opinion on whether it's possible that it was a situational factor rather than any personal codependent tendencies that caused me to be a target for covert narcissism. Let me explain. Just prior to meeting the covert narcissist I was with for 18 months and the 8 months of attempted hoovering since, I had been through about 6 intensive months of a course called the Landmark Forum and advanced level courses there. Are you familiar with it? Yes, I am familiar with it, and I'm an emotionally mature person. Basically, it postulates that all past events need bear no significance on our experience of the here and now. That's to the Landmark Forum and that idea, not to you, sir. And further, that nobody can do anything that affects another human being. Yep, and other pink clouds with unicorns in that we like to float around in. Rather, that it's the person's choice how they perceive and react to an event. I lived and breathed Landmark for that period in my life. It made me feel that life's quite easy and that very few things could seriously harm us. Moreover, I was extremely open to meeting a woman for a serious relationship after having been quite close to that for a few years after a previous girlfriend broke my heart. I'd had a number of girlfriends since, but nothing serious. At this stage, though, I probably had my heart on both sleeves due to having put all that behind me, and I was fully open to loving with every ounce of myself as I had in the past. Out in everyday life, I would speak of my experiences with Landmark with many people. That's how they market their programs. Don't I know it? Including my girlfriend-to-be, the covert narc, in the very first few days we met. I felt quite vulnerable for a change, and that feeling was quite rewarding. That sounds like an expression that the Landmark Forum might use, actually. He says, I repeat from the email, I felt quite vulnerable for a change, and that feeling was quite rewarding. There is one positive thing that I took from my experience with the Landmark Forum, and that was a phrase that was similar to this. I'm vulnerable for a change. was I'm open to the possibility of a change. I got briefly involved with the Landmark Forum because I was very briefly and distantly involved with a girl who was into it and who really liked it, and her whole family was really into it. And I'm proud to say I got kicked out of one of their seminars. The Landmark Forum, I don't know much about it. I'm not qualified to sit here and tell you who the founders are, its background, its philosophy, and all the rest of it. I can tell you why I got kicked out and what my direct experience was. And I had the Landmark Forum organizers contact me afterwards and apologize, but also refuse to change this format. Number one, we were put in a room together. It was the first day of a Landmark Forum. It was only a one-day event, and then I think you paid more for further events. Number one, you were not allowed to use the bathroom without permission. Now, at the time, I was 28 years old. I had been self-employed from the age of 21, from when I left university. I'd run my own businesses, and I'd been head doorman of one of the busiest nightclubs in Liverpool for about 4 years, called the Living Room. I actually worked as a taxi driver for a couple of years as well. So I felt at that point, at the tender age of 27, like a grown-up who'd had enough experience of life that he didn't need to ask other grown-ups if he needed to do a wee-wee. And I complained about that. And I put my hand up and I said, I will be leaving the room if I need the bathroom. And the organizer said, wait, you can't ask questions by just raising your hand like that. If you want to ask a question, you come to the front and you use this microphone and you speak into the microphone and you face the room. And I was like, well, I want to protest about that as well then, because what I've understood from my training in NLP is that Richard Bandler taught me that the single biggest phobia that he gets asked to treat more than anything else is public speaking. So you're going to force all the people in this room to go to the front of the room and talk into a microphone if they want to challenge you on anything, or do we have to talk into the microphone if we need the toilet as well? So straight away, I don't think I lasted half an hour in there, and they just said, look, if you feel like our format is not for you, you're free to leave. And I was like, I absolutely fucking know your format is not for me, and thank you for telling me I'm free to leave when you're in my fucking country. They were Australians. It was in London, and they were Australians, and they're like, you're free to leave. And I was like, I fucking know I'm free to leave, you fucks. Try and stop me. It actually mirrors an experience I'd had 9 years previous when I was 18 with the Scientologists. They tried to do the same thing to me. And there was a big open confrontation with them, and I just got spat out both times very, very quickly. These people are, in my professional opinion, total pieces of shit. They are human scum. They are parasites. They feed on the vulnerable, and they feed on human weakness. They make people worse, not better. They are not interested in creating sovereignty. They're not interested in creating independence. They're only interested in running a cult and lining their pockets. Interestingly enough, when I sat down for this seminar, brainwashing session, I think it was a young man, a little bit younger than me, but he was like 20 years old, next to me. And I started chatting to him, and he said, oh, hi, blah, blah, blah. Are you interested in psychology? I said, yeah, I got a psychology degree. I've done some NLP training, and that's why I'm here. And not because there's a girl I fancy who wants me to do this. And he said, oh, I'm here because I was raised in a cult. And I went, he wasn't laughing. At age 27, I didn't know enough about, how prevalent cults actually can be in Canada and America. I learned not long after that. Without wanting to go off on another one, my mad digressions. When I ran Street Fight Secrets, one of the first videos I shot was with a guy. I'm not going to say his name because I don't have his permission to. He probably wouldn't mind. He was very, very big in the internet world and the American home protection world. He teaches people like concealed carry laws, what to do if your home is invaded, prepping, survival, you know, that kind of thing. And I was chatting to him one day, and he was like, "Oh, I'm a Sikh," and I was like, "Oh, right. You're the whitest Sikh I've ever met." He was like, "Really, really." Before you scream at me, I know there's plenty of white Sikhs now. I didn't know that at the time. I was a younger man. I didn't know that much. And he was like, to him, I was like, "And also, you're very ginger." And he laughed. He took it well. And he was like, "No, I was actually the head bodyguard for one of the biggest Sikh communities in America." And I was like, "Whoa, that is crazy." It's not as common in England, so for or in the UK. So for an English person, it was that's why I laughed at this Canadian guy. I was like, "Yeah, of course you were raised in a cult," because in England that would only ever be a joke. And this guy was stone faced. He was like, "Oh, I've just told you I was traumatized by being raised in a cult, and you just laughed in my face." I was like, "Oh my god, sorry, dude. I didn't, you know, because I just didn't know enough." So that's my opinion of the Landmark Forum. There is psychological research out there. I studied years. I just ignored it after that. I was like, "Oh, I'm busy. I need to get on with other things, and you people suck." Um, so I studied years later what and I think I might have talked about this on the Spartan Life Coach channel in the very early days, about this kind of group psychology. And it's effectively, it's trauma bonding. They want you to reveal vulnerable details of your life to strangers, knowing that that's going to trauma bond you to the Landmark Forum, Scientology, or Sea Lo Que Sea, whatever it is. It's totally unnecessary. It's not good for you. And the research that I looked at said that it can actually have an unbinding effect. So that whilst you're there, I'm going to say that this is not a great analogy. This is not a good representation of the actual research that was done. They kind of suggested that what you've got when you have CPTSD, they didn't use those terms, and I didn't know that term at the time, is you have a series of coping mechanisms that allow you to sort of, you know, rock along in the world, like function, hobble along. And that these group sessions where you reveal intimate, vulnerable details of your life, and you're bullied into it. If you try not to, they will publicly shame you and humiliate you for being resistant to the process, for being duplicitous, for being a coward, and so on. And if you actually open up and you reveal these details about yourself, it actually wears away the glue of your mind. I know I said it wasn't going to be a good analogy, but it unbinds your coping mechanisms. And there have been instances of people having full-blown nervous breakdowns after these group therapy sessions that are, you don't even have a professional assigned to you. They're just assistants. It's just a fucking multi-level marketing pyramid. And these bellends, these fucking pieces of shit, will assign an assistant to you. Now that assistant could be an accountant, they could be a stand-up comic, they could be a car mechanic, and they're the ones who are going to talk you through this unbinding process where you reveal these most intimate details of your life, and they're totally unqualified to do it. They have no right to do this to people, none whatsoever, and they also encourage other group members to talk you through it. Now, before I read any further of the email, Spartan Life coaches, young Spartans, I'm sure that your alarm bells are ringing for what I'm describing to you, and you must be sat there going, this is a system that is open for abuse. Yes, it is. This is a system that is open for massive amounts of damage. Yes, it is. And there have been cases of reported suicides. So people that do a weekend, they go, they open up, they do their thing, they get trauma bonded to the group, and they get a buzz, they get a huge endorphin rush because they get validation for opening up. Now they're not getting validation for opening up and then healing and doing the work and moving forward, because there isn't a professional there who can oversee that and go, yes, now boundaries. How are you okay, you admitted that this happened, great, good for you, that's fantastic. And there is a huge release, as anybody who's been through a therapeutic process will tell you. Yes, I feel so good, I actually told somebody. But instead of them saying, okay, and now we need a structure, we need boundaries, we need discipline for you to get on with your life, they're just applauded by strangers and told, you're awesome, dude, now fuck off back into your normal life. And of course, what happens after that? that big peak, it's like a roller coaster ride, they crash out. Now, the idea that these fucking pieces of shit have is that you, in your desperation in that crash, will buy more product, will buy more courses, will buy more seminars. That's all it's for. If you look at Scientology and the economic structure of Scientology courses, which even they targeted me when I was a student in Birmingham. It was really weird. There was a little nest of these disgusting wasps in Birmingham city centre. And if you're at university in 1996 to 99 in Birmingham city centre, you'll know the Scientology headquarters were not that far from the Bullring, shopping centre in Birmingham city centre called the Bullring. It's all changed now. It's much nicer. It was pretty rough back then. And they would target students, probably hoping that maybe one or two of them would have access to mummy and daddy's cash, because these courses are really expensive. I think the first one they wanted to sign me up for, they said, oh, we've done a personality test on you, and you need the Zibbity Gibbity course, and that costs £495, and that's a weekend. But if you look at the structure, every course, in order to progress, it gets steadily more and more expensive as you get sucked into this, gibberish. It's absolute gibberish, dangerous, poisonous gibberish. So I get on with the email instead of ranting about how much I hate these fucks. Okay. And calm blue ocean. Then. Okay. So in the very first few days we met, I felt quite vulnerable for a change, and that feeling was quite rewarding. So this gentleman has been through this process. He's been to the Landmark Forum. He's stuck with it for a while. He feels better. He feels easier in himself. And he feels like life is easy, and he's walking around with the belief that nobody can do anything to you that you don't acquiesce to, which is fantastic. I would love to kidnap one of these fuckers and be like, why are you crying? Like, why are you scared? Nobody can do anything to you that, like, what's wrong? I thought you said no. Or just walk up to one of them, headbutt them, smash their nose across their face and go, what's the problem? Nobody can do anything to you. It's such fucking nonsense. I'm ranting again. Okay, let's stop. Fight response. Okay, so this guy, he's been through this process. He meets a girl, and he's in La La Land. He's in the pink cloud. He's in the unicorn chi pink cloud, and it feels good. It feels, he's like, he's found something. As everybody who gets involved in Landmark Forum and it works for them, there's this temporary kind of shell that you can live in, the pink cloud, and you also have a magic wand that you can beat other people with or analyze other people with and be like, oh, you just have some zetans attached to your nipple, and that's why you're being mean right now, or whatever it is. So it's a pink cloud and the magic wand, and he meets a girl. Therefore, in the first few months with my ex, and experiencing a lot of what I just thought was incredibly bad behavior on her part, I was still provocative, aren't I? I was still somewhat ignorant in the thought that none of her bad behaviors could affect me, and that as time wore on, what I perceived as her insecurities would fall away. The power of love. And she would settle into, inverted commas, the really great relationships ours had the potential of being. Aren't we all amazing at idealism? Just amazing romantic idealists. This is how badly we want the dream to be true. I didn't even need to make excuses for her behaviors at that point, because I still didn't let them affect me. Om, shanti, shanti, om. There's no you, there's no me, there's no non-duality. There's no duality, sorry, I'm a non-dualist, we're all one. Also, I thought. But as time wore on, my armor began to wear down, or reality began to seep in past the pink cloud. Even though I knew there were plenty of things wrong with the relationship, I thought it was worth saving because of its potential. We are lovers of potential. So I worked harder, good lad, to make her feel better about herself. So I worked harder to make her feel better about herself. I'm just repeating that. I'm not being a dick. This isn't about shaming anybody or trying to make this guy feel bad. He's, you know, he's asked me this question. He's a very polite, intelligent guy. This is for the benefit of other people watching and people who've been following the channel for a while. This sentence, because we've all thought it and felt it, but I want you to hear objectively through the perspective, the third person perspective of an acerbic Scouse Englishman, how fucking ridiculous that sounds. And I believed it as well. So I worked harder to make her feel better about herself. You know, he's talking about another human being, another adult. I did the same. I worked harder to make my ex-girlfriend feel better about herself. She's a totally separate entity. She's a separate adult. She's got her life, her lungs, her heart, her brain, her eyes. They're different to mine. They're not, you know, she's a different person, but I worked harder to make her feel better about herself. Great sentence. It's all summed up right there. Codependency summed up right there. Nothing, however, nothing I ever did was good enough. Smiling, not sadistically, but with, empathy. You know, I can see where you're coming from. I was repeatedly told that I didn't love, care for, or value or respect her. I was told that I would never find a lifelong love. It's a really brutal thing to say to somebody. And that I wouldn't have a family. Also pretty mean. You shouldn't. A person should not be saying stuff like that to you. Logically, I didn't believe any of what she was saying. Logically. And where does logic get us? However, at the time, I still thought, via my landmark training, the pink cloud, that nothing she could do could affect me, that I must choose to be affected. Amazing. I now know that I was being consistently devalued, and then the abuse got worse. A story familiar to 100% of the people who are watching this video right now. I became increasingly more aware that something was seriously wrong when I could feel the anger well up in me after having my buttons pushed for hours or days on end, and I would mostly surprise it and work through the issues. Suppress it. He must have meant suppress it. And I would mostly suppress it and work through the issues. You can't surprise anger. Boo. I would mostly suppress it and work through the issues. Yeah, because the codependent in a relationship with the abusive person is the adult, the solution bringer, the fixer. You know, I'm the grown up, you're the child. It's parent, child. If you like your transactional analysis, it's horizontal. It's vertical communication. So as much as we complain that, like, on the totem pole they're always above you, being above you is equal to the cluster B, to the abusive personality, as Gary Klein would say. On the totem pole they're above you, and being above you is equal. Similarly, the way that we treat them in a passive, so-called empathic way is also on the totem pole not equal. We're putting ourselves above them without knowing it, unconsciously. And it's not, I'm not saying that we have the same mindset as the narcissistic cluster B mindset. It's not about exploitation. It's about the addiction to trying to make things right. And in doing that, you accidentally and unconsciously, we all do, have to put yourself above the other person and go, well, I'm the parent, you're the child. There's no adult here. In transactional analysis, they have parent, adult, child, and they consider adult to adult communication healthy, and that any other sort of communication could be a little bit unhealthy. Parent to child is not healthy when you have two adults. Why are you trying to fix somebody who's saying really mean and horrible things to you and treating you badly? I will continue. Very occasionally, I would snap and fire back at her, and she would say that I was attacking her. She would have all sorts of temper tantrums. I would hold her to calm her down, and she would punch me as if she was being cornered. She would scream at me and sometimes smash and break things. The adrenaline would surge in my body, and the thought of her phone calls and texts, I would never know what sort of mood. Oh, the adrenaline would surge in my body at the thought of her phone calls and texts, because I would never know what sort of mood she was going to project. There's two things here. This is how I suspect the majority of domestic violence cases that the police see actually play out, or at least begin. you might have seen, it's a hard film to watch. It's called Nil by Mouth. It's a film that has Ray Winston in it, and it has a very brutal, very visceral portrayal of domestic violence, and a couple of scenes that are really hard to stomach. That, I'm sure, happens. But I've trained enough police and I've worked with enough police to know that the majority of cases, sorry, I should explain. In those scenes, it was very much predator prey. Ray Winston beats Kathy. Can't remember her second name. A really good actress, Kathy. It'll come to me. Beats her savagely and is very predatory about it. In most cases well, not only have I worked with the police, but I've actually had to deal with domestic violence cases working in security that play out in nightclubs or that played out in the street outside of the nightclub. It's a little bit more blurry than that. And so if the police would say to you afterwards, would you like to make a statement, who threw the first punch? It's like, I can't really say who's done it. So you could have an intelligent, nice person who's never been violent in their life being worn away to the point where the police could be called upon that person. When I did the London seminar recently, one of the people who was helping out on that seminar with a technical element of it for the production of the seminar, who didn't know me, had nothing to do with me, I just hired him for the day to do a job. He did a great job. Actually said to me in one of the breaks, I'm experiencing this. I'm experiencing what you're talking about in the seminar. My current girlfriend sounds like one of these cluster B or borderline personality disorder people, and this is what happened recently. And he described a situation where the violence had slowly escalated to the point where he had been pushed in the face, and then he turned around and grabbed her wrists and pushed her away, and she picked something up and lashed at his head and cut his head open, and he called the police. And the police then came, saw the blood, blah, blah, blah. She told his story, he told hers. He told his story, she told hers, and they wanted to arrest her. And he said, okay, don't do it. And then that became a new stick for her to beat him over the head with, like the time you called the police on me. And I remember saying to this guy, it was really quite depressing conversation. He was like, in your professional opinion, what do you make of this? And I was like, he said, I really love her. Is there any hope? And I was like, no. If you're being truthful and any element of what you told me, or the elements that you told me are true, there's no hope for you with this girl. Please leave. And then, like, as we were talking, he confessed things. Like, he's a technician, and he has things in his house that he uses for the, like sound type stuff. And he had to put padlocks on the doors to stop her from going in and smashing up his stuff. And I'm like, does she live with you? Yeah. I'm like, dude, think about what you're telling me as a rational adult. You're saying that the girl you live with and that you love, you have to padlock certain rooms of the house so that she doesn't break things. You've gone past the point. You could see the despair in his eyes. Like, he said he'd never been in a relationship like that before, which is the key point. The second thing I was going to say before I rambled on there for a bit is that this is a common effect of having your adrenaline spiked over and over and over again. You're either going to hurt that person, you're going to hurt a thing, like you're going to crash the car, you're going to smash things up, or you're going to hurt yourself, or it'll be a breakdown, full-blown breakdown. That's the effect of having your adrenaline spiked and being shoved into double binds all the time, and experiencing ambient abuse and emotional abuse. Is this the adrenaline, which can be a really good friend to us, to the human body, to the human mind. If you've ever watched the Wim Hof documentary on YouTube, I recommend it. Wim Hof, the Iceman. And he says that they've actually, using the power of his mind, he's been given pathogens that should have made him ill, and he's burned them out, as it were. Those are my words, not his, where he didn't get ill. And he said he did that by using adrenaline to stop himself from being. This is all scientifically verifiable. Not only that, that's pretty impressive. He did that in a laboratory setting. You'd be like, well, he's probably got some weird DNA. He then said, well, I'm going to train 20 other people to do exactly what I just did. And then he did. He trained them, and they ran the tests again, put the pathogens into the people. They should have got sick with the virus, and they didn't. And that's the positive effect of adrenaline. The negative effect of adrenaline can be deadly. It can be really, really, really bad for you. However, I was unsure why I was feeling so horrible about myself, and I still thought that even though she was going through her stuff, I didn't need to. Let me just check I'm still online. I am. Is there still a sound coming out of my face? Good. However, I was unsure why I was feeling so horrible about myself. I still thought that even though she was going through her stuff, I didn't need to. I think he means I didn't need to go through her stuff just because she's going through stuff. Boys and girls, when you live with somebody or you're in contact with them, your state transmits. Their state transmits. You can't live with somebody who has, talk to the wives and husbands of combat veterans with PTSD, what the effect of the combat veterans PTSD is on the partner and the rest of the family. The research is in, there's no doubt about this whatsoever. If you're living with somebody whose adrenaline is spiking all the time and they're in flashbacks, that it will have a deleterious effect on everybody in the family. People get sicker, they will engage in more, how should I put it, addictive behaviors, they have lower impulse control, the use of gambling, the use of porn, the use of drugs, the use of alcohol, smoking, overeating, blah, 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 whatever it is goes up as people struggle to maintain. Like, if you're with somebody, if you're in the environment of somebody, well, the hippies used to call this a contact high. So if I'm sober and this person is completely blasted out of their mind on acid and I talk to them, I'm going to feel a bit trippy as well, obviously. If this person's really, really happy, I'm feeling really sad, but I talk to them for long enough, they will probably cheer me up without trying to, because your state transmits. So you can't think that you can be with somebody who's going through an extremely emotionally turbulent time, that won't hurt you. It will. So I would ask myself the question, why was I feeling so bad? I was getting more and more depressed. Yeah. This is helplessness settling in. You don't know why it's happening. You've got this pink cloud you're living in. You've been trained by the landmark forums that it shouldn't be happening, and yet it is. And it creates like a kind of self-abandonment, depressive state. I finally stumbled upon the concept of narcissism because of something her mother had once said to me about her daughter being a narcissist. It was a passing comment, and I brushed it off. Okay, she likes to look in the mirror and check her phone all the time. But isn't that what all 28-year-olds do? I thought. No. I went searching for narcissism and found your videos, among many others. I read about it and realized that the way to leave a narc is to grey stone them. And I did that. I became very blasé about life in her presence. I thought it would be the perfect test, and it was. Over the next 2 months, she couldn't understand why I was no longer paying her as many compliments or buying her the flowers or gifts that I would in the past. There's a words missing here, so I have to make this up. That I would in the past previously do in order to appease her with. Sir, the sentence construction is dreadful. See me after class. 2 months was all it took for her to leave me. That's the power of grey rock. If you start grey rocking somebody in their cluster B, they will leave because you're not giving them the milkshake that they're thirsting for. 2 months was all it took for her to leave me in the cloudiest way imaginable, so that I wasn't even sure if it was over or not. That's standard, and I won't cover all ground by restating why that happened. Months later, I am still addicted to her, even though I went no contact with her 6 months ago. Even though I am now doing incredibly well in most areas of my life, I'm still haunted by the thoughts of wanting her back, or something about her in my life, or wanting something about her in my life, maybe. Logically, I'm committed to never going there with her again. However, I don't want this to be playing out in my life, especially when I'm on my own in my quiet moments. That's why I'm working through your material now. I appreciate all that you are doing. Thank you very much. It's going to go a long way towards healing many people. Thank you again. Coming back to my original question, though, I have never let a woman treat me this way in my past. I'm 38 and have had some absolutely delightful relationships that have not worked out for one reason or another, but never because either of us has seriously mistreated the other. This next question is the core of the email, and it's in bold. Is there any chance that the way I was expressing myself at that time in my life, due to landmark learnings, was making me open to the maltreatment rather than any codependent tendencies I might have? I won't answer that question now. I'll finish the email and then I'll come back to the question. Apologies for the essay. Any insight you could tell me would be great. I will examine my childhood and upbringing at length in the audio section of your course. I do struggle to believe that my parents, who were very attentive and kind to our needs as children, would have narcissist myself. Would have narcissist. He's turned it into a verb. I've been narcissist right in the eye. They would have narcissist myself or my siblings. However, I'll approach it with an open and objective mind. Thank you so much for everything that you do, Andre. Okay, is it possible that you had temporarily made yourself open to maltreatment rather than having any codependent tendencies? The thing is, this will be a little bit of a tough one. Yes, the landmark teachings didn't help. Yes, they created an opening. But I must tell you, because you've asked for an opinion of somebody who does this for a living, there are other indications within this email that you are very nice, very reasonable, and possibly a little bit naive. Now, that's not full-blown people pleaser syndrome. That's not full-blown dependency. Oh, Max is licking me. He thinks I need mothering. Let's have a look at Max. It's time for Max. Everybody needs a Max break. It's too heavy, Max. The subject matter is heavy. Let's see if you're on screen. Max, you look. It's you bring levity. You're the levity. You're levity. Okay. Okay, there's your Max break. There's your there. So you go palate cleanser. It's a Max break. It's a bit of levity with Max. For some reason he's decided it's that time of night when I need to be licked. I think this is him putting me to bed. Okay, human, you need to be licked now. There is a bit of naivety. There is a bit of fine, upstanding gentlemanness in this, and it could be like a sort of culturally induced codependency. And so let me say it like this: a nice, well-educated, intelligent person who doesn't know how to think selfishly or narcissistically will be just tender meat to the cluster B. So I've always said that I was, you know, a codependent and a people pleaser, and I think I was. But I do also think that if you're raised well, if you're like a nice, polite person, you open doors for ladies, you know, polite, you let people go in front of you in the queue, and you value politeness and kindness and commitment. You know, maybe your parents are still together, and so you can see a functional relationship. You have that modeled, and you can see that you have to work through when you have problems. They're a good model for you. So there's not nothing of the codependent in you. There's not nothing of the people pleaser in you, but you're not perhaps a neurotic people pleaser or a neurotic codependent. I could be totally wrong. I'm just giving you an opinion based on the extremely limited information I have about you based on this email. Now, I know you asked me in another email, and you also asked me in this one, why are you still addicted to her? There's another Google Hangout I did called Addicted to the Narcissist, Craving a Spike. You should check that out. You should also check out a video I did on trauma bonding, the concept of trauma bonding, which interestingly enough, I didn't get from studying narcissistic abuse psychology. I got from studying cults when I decided to educate myself about cults, because I really didn't, as I said earlier in this video, like I didn't know enough about them. And trauma bonding is something that cults do. So cults will frequently, studying cult psychology is cool because it will help. Because if you understand the psychology of what a cult does, you can see what a narcissistic or abusive family unit does, and you can see what what a cult does at a group level is what a narcissist will do at an individual level. Sometimes some of the strategies, they're exactly the same: the love bombing, the implicit rules, the constant reframing of behaviors, the punishing for certain taboo crimes, like questioning the group or questioning the leader of the cult, or whatever it is. And then the whole cycle of devaluation when you've been naughty and you've questioned the cult too much and you get kicked out. And for people who have been kicked out of cults, you know, they often have to go into therapy because not because of everything that was just done to them, but the fact is that they miss the cult. They miss the abusive mummy figure. They miss the abusive daddy figure, because that's what they're now trained into, and that's what's become part of their emotional and biological landscape. And when I say the biological landscape, I'm talking now about the effect emotional dysregulation can have on the HPA axis. There's another video somewhere on the Spartan Life Coach channel about that. The HPA axis is responsible for how you, amongst other things, how it's a part of the brain. It's a collaborative effort between three parts of the brain that have different mechanisms, different mechanistic functions and objectives, but when they work together, they have this one objective. And one of the things that one of the objectives that three-part of the brain system that operates has is the perception of threat and mediating how we respond to it, and mediating how the body will respond to it. And if that gets out of whack, if the HPA axis gets tilted off its axis, then you will start to overreact to different situations. You could be getting adrenaline surges for things that either haven't happened or you know, that are just coming out from your mind. But I'm not going to get deep into it in this video because we're running out of time. But these are things that will cause you to stay addicted to the presence of a narcissist. I'm going to go through the Q&A app here on the Google Hangout, and I'm going to see if I can get a couple of people on to chat, and then we're going to have to call it a day. So I'm going to put the link on the Google Plus page if you want to join now. The link is going to go live here. You can see it now. If you click on that, turn your volume down, because if you don't turn your volume down when you join me, like, we'll be able to hear our own dumb voices echoing back, and it creates this weird feedback loop that sounds dreadful. Okay. The Q&A section. Oh, and remember that everything is public that you say, and it's going to be kept on YouTube forever. It's in the public domain forever. So if you join this video chat and you ask me a question, that stays forever. So either cover your face, don't turn your camera on, or change your name, or whatever you need to do to protect your identity if that's something that's important to you. Wendy asks, the last one was obsessed with cults. He constantly watched and rewatched documentaries. How dare you? It moved while I was answering the question. How dare you? You disgraceful app. Where's Wendy gone? This is unacceptable. Damn it. Okay, select. Also those, okay, documentaries on Scientology and cults, also those horrible real life murder shows. Do they actually study? That's what it seemed like. I'm not aware of it personally, but I've heard of that. I've heard they will study you, and that they will study the subject to learn how to be more abusive. Yes, that is what I've heard. Peace has joined us. Hello, Peace. Can you hear me, Peace? Hello? Oh, I muted you. Sorry, Peace. Hang on. Oh dear, show my age now. I don't know how to use this modern technology. Peace, you've been muted. Wait 1 second. Oh, this is terrible. What have I done? Peace, I'm going to have to kick you out, and if you could jump back in, that would be great. I'm sorry, I made a mistake there. Sorry about that. Sky, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm confused.
Oh, you can hear me. That's great. What can I do for you, Sky? Sky, can you hear me? Sky, you need to, okay, Sky's gone. This is working very well. Beverly, can you hear me, Beverly? Beverly? I don't know if you can hear me. I can't hear you. Beverly's gone. Okay. Kevin, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. How are you, Richard?
I'm very well, sir. How are you doing?
Good. So I watched the poop donkey video that you sent me about dealing with anger, and I was listening.
Did you like that?
I was listening. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I was listening today about the gray rock technique, and I was just reminiscing about how me and my ex split up, and I did the gray rock thing with her, and that's what actually pushed her away from me. But I still haven't healed totally, because I thought doing the gray rock thing was going to be able to teach her or show her that the way she was acting was really, really abusive and not conducive to a healthy relationship. So my efforts to try to make everything work perfectly prior to the gray rock, I still have a little bit of anger with, but the fact that she wouldn't acknowledge what she's doing is still really raw with me, and I'm really trying to get past that anger so I can move on. But I've worked through some of the stuff.
How long ago did you split up with that?
I always get flashbacks.
Yeah.
Always.
How long have you split up with her? How long has it been?
7 months.
7 months. That's still fairly new. You're angry with yourself because you tried to get her to admit her behavior and she just refused to do it.
Well, not only refused, but immediately went and lived with somebody else and started a brand new relationship with that person. So,
Yeah.
It's been a difficult thing to deal with, but
there is a bit. Sorry, go on, mate. Say that again.
I said I understand the way she's acting, why she's acting the way she is. What frustраtes me the most is we always talked about a better way to have our relationship, but I really don't think she was ever interested. So when I cut off all the money and I cut off all the clothes and the trips, that's when she decided to bail ship. So that's what I'm dealing with now. Is that what I should have done?
Is what you should have done?
Stop giving her money and stop taking her on trips and stop, paying for all her clothes and paying for all her bills. And I don't know if stopping that is such a good decision. And I struggle with that.
Why would it not have been a good decision on your part? Why would it have been a bad decision on your part?
Well, for the 2 years prior to that, everything seemed to be working fine when I was giving her everything she wanted. So,
do you want to live like that? Is that the person you want to be?
No, but I didn't think that would really make the relationship, but apparently that's, all I was there for. And the fact that I was naive enough to believe that, well, for the 2 years prior to that, everything seemed to be working fine when I was giving her everything she
sorry,
wanted.
Kevin, just 1 moment. Henrietta, you need to turn your volume right down. Because it's coming through. There we go. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, no, I mean I understand that you missed this lady, Kevin.
That's what
yeah. I'm sorry, Henrietta. I'm going to have to kick you out because you're making a weird noise. But this is a philosophical and a moral decision that you've made, which is for yourself, in order to protect yourself, where you have to set a boundary with yourself and say, that's not who I want to be. I don't want to be somebody's sugar daddy. I don't want to be with a girl who's only with me because I'm buying her things and giving her clothes. If I know that can be tough to do that, but this is where you have to start raising the standards with yourself. And that's a very personal thing that you need to go through.
Yeah, and that's where I have the hardest time dealing with it, is just being a difficult thing to do. But I'm working through it, and every time that I feel I'm challenged by that boundary, I ask myself why, and it always comes back to because of the way it was before with this woman, right?
Yes.
And just fighting through that is where some of my anger comes from.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one of the things that I would recommend for that is to look at what your beliefs are based on what you think you deserve from a relationship. If you believe that you deserve to be in an equal and balanced relationship where you're loved for you.
Yeah.
Well, go on. Sorry.
I know that my beliefs are pretty fucked up because of stuff I went through as a child, right? So I'm working through that as well.
Yeah.
Like just doing the work through your program there has really helped a lot. And the last video call with the poop donkey thing, that was awesome. Cool. I had that little carrot in front of the donkey, and if I'm going to go to where the shit is, if I believe that the shit is what I want. So it's changing. The whole belief thing is what I've been working on lately, and I just want to say thanks very much for that. And then the anger stuff, I still got to find a way to release some of the anger, and I'm having to do that. That's what I struggle with the most.
Well, that's what I suggest you do, Kevin, is if you actually email me, what I'll do is I'll try and ask the questions like in a sequential form, like this is the anger I'm experiencing, how do I deal with it? I'll actually do a video that covers it, because there are a lot of people out there I know who are struggling to let go of that anger, and it would help a lot of people. If you don't mind doing that, I'd be happy to do that for you.
I don't mind doing that at all, Richard, and I will. I'll even send it off to you tonight.
That's great. That's awesome, Kevin. Thank you very much, mate. I look forward to your email, and I'll speak to you soon.
Awesome. Thank you, Richard.
Cheers, buddy. Bye-bye. Okay, I'm going to take a couple more calls, and then I'm going to have to go. Mewish.
Hello?
Hi, Mewish.
Oh, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, cool, great. I've tried posting on your channels and stuff for ages, but I'm a bit of a Neanderthal, so clearly I'm a monkey in Space Odyssey. But basically the point that I want to make is there's too much of a realization going on where I had a Narcy mom, and then I married my Narcy husband, and I had a Narcy friend, and I have a lot of Narcy relationships. And the realization just basically dawned on me maybe in full fling 6 months ago. I've left my husband. I'm trying to go no contact with my mom. Culturally, I can't do that because she's my mom, etc., etc. And I'm also pregnant with my husband's child, blah, blah, blah. Too much to deal with. The problem is, him, I guess, fairly easy. I've gone completely no contact. With my mom, it's still difficult because A, the abuse is longer, and B, among many ways of abuse, one of them was, other than, you know, the beating and the yelling and the humiliation and the black sheep and blah blah, was the self-righteous, holier than thou, cult-like leader position stance which she has taken now. And unfortunately, from where I'm from, it's parents unfortunately have that that born right to own you, even religiously.
Were your parents were born in India, were they?
Close enough. I'm from Pakistan, so they're Muslims.
That's where my father was born. My father was born in Rawalpindi.
Oh, woo, okay. I hope it's not just something that's geographically located. I really hope it's not. I like to fancy that I don't look like my mom or sound like her at all, but I guess I just posted the question was, how do you of course I'm trying to get on with my life, I'm trying to be independent, and I'm everyone that I meet says that I'm doing an amazing job, and they're surprised at my survival skills, which shouldn't be surprising because I survived her.
Yeah.
The problem is, how do I not explode every time she goes into her self-righteous rant and telling me how you walk the path of goodness in order to achieve complete salvation? How do I just put up a nice face and pretend, yeah, okay, conversation over, okay, thank you, yeah, good on you, bye.
It takes a hell of a lot of work to do that. A hell of a lot of work. I can't remember the guy's name off the top of my head, but he said, if you think you're so enlightened, go and spend a weekend with your family. And it really sounds like very intense provocation from her in the face of her propagandizing you with this nonsense that you know she doesn't live. You know, it's just
Not at
she's
all.
just spouting it.
The time I got beaten up was I was 28 with my father and my mom, and it's for these very reasons. Is because I exposed her hypocritical facade, and I said to her that you are a living hypocrite. Clearly, you shouldn't say that to a narcissist. I learned that the very hard way. The very, very hard way.
Yeah, I mean, the only way that you can see a lot of people when they talk about this, they'll tell you, oh, you should say this or you should do this when you're dealing with your mum. But my perspective on it is that there's like, it's almost like hooks that she has in you that she put in childhood where you couldn't say no, you couldn't consent or deny. And all of those hooks have to be taken out one by one, and it's very difficult work to do, but very rewarding. Because if you can get to the point where she can't hook into you, you know, you will. It's very, very powerful. And then what you actually say doesn't matter because it will be coming from a place of emotional detachment where you are not right now. I mean, you are not emotionally detached from this lady, are you?
Well, physically, I'm literally on the other side of the world, and I'd like to fancy that I am, but I just got a call from her yesterday pretending to care about, you know, doing her duty. And it just, I couldn't even though the video wasn't on, they don't have my phone number, it was just a Skype call, I couldn't help but cringing and wanting to punch. And I'm a very hippie, love the animal, love people kind of a person, but I really felt the urge to just bite my own finger off that, can this conversation stop?
I actually, it's interesting you say that because before I knew anything about narcissism at all, I remember I would have conversations with my father, and I noticed a few times after I'd spoken to him, or even during the conversation, I'd want to throw the phone through a window, and I was like, that's not, you know, I'm an angry guy, but nobody else makes me feel that way. Nobody else makes me want to chuck a phone through a fucking window. So I sympathize. I sympathize deeply. I mean, it's a situation I've been through. But you are emotionally, because of that, you're negatively emotionally attached to her, and that's the emotional detachment that I'd want to create in you.
Okay, so how do I get rid of this ugly parasite that she's planted since birth as a gift?
Jesus, what poetic language you use.
That's something that, again, culturally, I was supposed to be a doctor, and then, of course, that age, you know, those destiny too. So she's pretty upset about that too. Clearly, I wasn't something she was very happy with.
I mean, I could say to you, go and buy the Covert Narcissism course, work through it, and everything's going to be okay. But I'm not going to say that to you because it's not that simple. It's actually very, very tough to get this stuff out, to get that parasite that she planted in you since birth out of you is tough. And probably, again, I know that culturally this is not an accepted thing. It actually requires therapy. It actually requires one-on-one therapy, at least for a bit. I don't know where you would, but if you could do that, if you'd be okay with that, but that would be my recommendation.
Really, I'm one of those people that need a hug because my mom didn't. My mom didn't hug me. I'm one of those people. I have issues because my mom never hugged me. Okay.
I think what you would need to do is you'd need to talk through with somebody about the specific way in which your mother has colonized your mind and left poison in your mind that is leaking. In your mind and in your heart. I mean, I went a bit intellectual there, and I shouldn't have done that. It's in your heart because it's got a very corrosive effect on your ability to grow and move on and mature in your life.
Oh, okay. So you suggest the best thing is either I take a course or maybe have one-on-one therapy.
If you could find somebody who specializes in narcissistic abuse within families, that would be the best. And there are people, I think, who specialize in narcissistic abuse by mothers to daughters.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
There are also support groups online that might help as well.
Oh, I've joined some. It helps a lot. I know I've taken a lot of airtime. Thank you so much for taking my question. There's so many more popping up, but I guess I'll bug you on the rest of the Google Hangouts. Thank you so much for taking my question.
Nice talking to you. Take care.
So wonderful talking to you. Thank you. Bye.
Yes, bye-bye. I'm going to take one more call and I'm going to wrap this up. Sky, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. What can I do for you?
Okay, I'm older. I'm 52, and I had just figured out that my entire family were all a bunch of narcissists, and I was the people pleaser. I always had to. Everything was okay. I mean, I've watched the people pleaser syndrome, and it was like me spot on. You know, my mom put a roof over our heads, and thank God, and she abused us, and she was a drinker. And then my sister committed suicide on Christmas of 2014.
Okay,
And yeah, and but I mean, it all planted my entire life. All my friends were narcissists, my ex-husbands, my boyfriends, my friends. And now I've like isolated myself so I don't get caught up in that world of crap again.
Right.
How do I get out? I mean, it's so hard because my choices are so bad.
So you're saying you don't trust other people anymore, and you don't trust yourself to make good choices anymore.
Both.
Yeah. This is a very common response to realizing you're the victim of narcissistic abuse. You know, you retreat, you self-isolate, you want to go and retreat into the cave where it feels nice and safe, but obviously it's also a very lonely place, and it's very hard. You can survive, but you can't thrive when you're in that state.
Yeah, my daughter's also a narcissist.
Right. Okay.
So I'm asking another question now. Can I be a narcissist and a people pleaser?
Yes. Yes, you can. Yeah, you can. It's pretty rare, because you can be a kind of people pleaser and still have very strong narcissistic traits. You could, and it gets a bit complicated. You could be a covert or vulnerable narcissist, or you could be a inverted narcissist. But it's not usually a puzzle. If somebody's a narcissist, they usually know that they are, and they're usually okay with it.
No, no.
You wouldn't be okay with that.
No.
Do you like to exploit people?
No. No, I get emotionally blackmailed by my daughter if I don't do certain things.
Right. Do you feel entitled to have things that other people don't have, or sorry, before other people should get them?
No.
That's my very short two-question test for narcissism. These are the most important traits: is exploitation and entitlement. And if you're having these thoughts and you're worried about it, it's unlikely you're a narcissist, because somebody with narcissistic personality sort of wouldn't be worried or be stressing out over, maybe it's me, maybe I'm the one with the problem.
Yes.
So it's really unlikely to be you, very unlikely to be you. The reason why there's been so many narcissists in your life up until now is because this is where you feel at home. This is where you feel comfortable, even though you know it's not right. It feels comfy to be on the other end of abuse.
Yeah, it just seems like a cycle that's just never going to go away. I mean, you know, with my daughter, well, I have two kids, my son and my daughter. And she's horrible. She actually studied your video on narcissism.
Okay.
She studied it.
Yeah.
And now I thought that was really weird.
I'm aware of people who are very sick, in the exploitative way, in the cluster B way, who are attracted to my videos, and they do contact me quite frequently. It happens quite a lot.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Spooky thought, a very, very spooky thought. I mean, it sounds like the work that needs to be done with yourself. I'm not going to lie to you. It would need to be quite deep work. You'd need to go right back into the core belief system that is formed, that you only deserve love within a certain context, and that context is abusive. And pulling that belief out is going to be dredging up some darkness from the bottom of a pretty deep lake. But it is possible, it's doable, and it's well worth the effort.
Yeah, I keep thinking it's just too late for me to get any
What are
kind
you
of.
talking about? You're 52. That's the new 42 last time I heard. I'm nearly 42. It's not too late. Nonsense. I've got loads of time. Learn to play tennis, dance salsa, do all kinds of stuff between now and then.
Right, and I can, I'm single, and because I don't want to even go there because my last ex, whatever you want to call him, was he was terrible. I mean, he picked the weakest links of any kind of girl he ever dated.
Yes, I mean, if you can come back to yourself, if you can change your beliefs to genuinely being in a place where you feel like you have value and you are worth loving just for you, with no special effort and no deals. You know, you don't want to form, because you probably have a fawn response to trauma because of the abusive people in your life, where you're constantly forming contracts and trades with them. You know, I'll let you be this abusive if you stick around for this and blah, 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 blah. And if you can get your belief system to the point where you don't need that anymore, you're just like, no, I deserve to be loved just for me, because I'm just a normal, lovable mammal on the planet right now, then you'll have made some real progress. And then at that point, you can get back into another relationship and you'll feel more comfortable doing it.
Okay,
if you tried to do it now, it would be a very turbulent thing. Go on, sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. Do you think that I'm codependent with these people, or I have a problem with codependency? I don't really know what it means.
Codependency is where you start to transplant your needs and your feelings for the feelings and needs of another. So you'll be so hypersensitive to the moods and needs and wants of your boyfriend, you will try and preempt what it is that he wants by over giving, boundaryless giving, so that he will be pleased with you and will not abuse you. This was trained into you as a child by a parent who was, or parents, or a family unit that was unfair, excessively strict, over demanding, hypocritical, where the rules were changing all the time. And you're like, Jesus, what do I do to stop the pain of being wrong, of being rejected, of being attacked? Okay, I'm going to try and preempt what people need by giving it to them before they can even think of the need themselves.
Okay, no, then.
That's the standard for codependency. But that doesn't ring a bell for you? You don't think that's where you're coming from with this one?
No.
No?
Why
do you stick around in these relationships, do you think?
Well, I haven't. It's been 2 years. With the guy.
Did you say you haven't been sticking around in abusive relationships?
Not anymore. Well, okay, with my daughter living with me, you mean?
Okay, previously when you were in abusive relationships with men, why did you stick around in them, do you think?
Well, because I wasn't good enough for anybody else. I couldn't find nobody else. I wasn't wanted. It was, I was like under a hypnotic spell, I guess, because I knew that I did deserve better, but I just took what I can get. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It also sounds a little bit like codependency. Sounds like something is going on there where you're supplanting your needs for the needs of somebody else because you don't think you're worth anything else.
Right.
So if I was advising you about, like, there's loads of free information online, you might want to look a little bit more into codependency and see if that does fit for you. And if it does, maybe some of the information that's out there might be of use in helping you to recover from this thing.
Okay. All right. Well, it was really nice talking to you.
Yeah. Thanks for your call. I enjoyed it.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye. Okay. So to conclude with the subject of this video, can codependency be context specific? The openings of codependency, the belief system that would permit you to open up to a narcissistic relationship, for sure could be context specific. Some of you might have picked this up. I'm going to say it. I might sound like a dick. I don't know. But I have to tell the truth, even if it means that people hate me for it. In the context of this email that I received, I would say that to the gentleman in question, you wouldn't have gone along with the Landmark Forum mad teachings if you hadn't had some codependent tendencies. The email sounds a bit like you want me to tell you that there's no codependency there, you don't need to worry about it. You wouldn't have gone along with landmark teachings, and you wouldn't have let an abusive relationship into your life under any circumstances without some degree of codependency. And it might not have come from narcissistic parents. It might come from a good upbringing. It might come from, you know, old-fashioned. There is a problem in society, and I'm not the first person to mention this, that like our old traditional models for training people to be in the world will make you open to abuse. It's really sick. It's really perverted. It's really perverted. And that's what these people do. They pervert goodness. They turn good stuff into bad things. And the work is to stay strong and to stay light and to stay positive and not allow yourself to be twisted and corrupted into something evil, because they love that. That excites them, stiffens their nipples. It means that they're important and powerful, as Sam Vaknin would say, godlike in their omnipotence, that they can take a decent human being and twist them into a corrupted demon monster. On that really light note, I'm going to end this Google Hangout. I'm just going to just have a quick scan of the questions here. Somebody, okay, what I'm looking at now is questions that have been voted up. I'm just scanning really, really quickly. I'm sorry I can't answer all the questions. Sorry I didn't get the chance to speak to everybody. I'm going to answer this one because it's been voted up quite highly. I think I always feel vulnerable. Is that the same as being a victim or having a victim mentality? Not necessarily. If you feel vulnerable all the time, maybe you are vulnerable. Maybe there is an objective reality that is causing you to feel vulnerable. For example, if I was thrown into a high security prison tomorrow, I would feel vulnerable all of the time, particularly at shower time. But that's not because of anything that's in me. That's something that's objective in the environment. One of the problems with psychology is that we are trained to think in terms of the problem being inside the individual. And this is where psychotherapists and psychiatrists and psychologists can make a mistake, and then they get accused of victim blaming, because we are actually trained. It's implicit. It's not explicit, not in any textbook. It's just there in the ideology that the problem is in you. It's not outside of you. So when people say to me, I'm depressed, and they come for coaching, and we're talking about depression, I'm always like, well, let's just do a check of the depressing things that are in your life outside of you, rather than assume there's some chemical imbalance in your brain. You know, did anything depressing happen? Yeah, I lost my job and my best friend died. Well, these are objective things that occurred in reality that are causing you to feel a certain way. That's not like a genetic problem or anything like that. There's another couple of, oh, I see how this question and answer app works. It puts the upvoted things highest. Oh, that's really smart. I'm glad I figured that out. Dope. They should change their name to landmines. Yes, being around people like that is like tiptoeing around a landmine. There's another plus forward one here. It's a joke. Oh, stop moving. Eileen says, sounds to me that the landmark forum people suffer from the cluster B DBD douchebag disorder. Hey, bit of comedy for you. Bit of comedy. Bit of CPTSD comedy. Adam says, amazing how easily it seems that young man seemed to be aware he was raised and indoctrinated by a cult as a child. As an adult, was searching for an answer, caught looking from cult to cult. Yeah, that freaked me out as well. Like he joined another cult thinking that was going to cure him of the last cult. Or maybe he didn't think it was going to cure him. Maybe he just needed a nice, comfy, warm cult duvet to slip back under. And this is the final question from Lisa. Could my very strict religious upbringing have made me vulnerable to narcissistic abuse? Yes, it could have. Very strict. I'm not going to get into it. I don't want rotten tomatoes thrown at me via cyberspace. But the relationship between religion and narcissism is well known in the research, well known by the people who have to treat the victims of narcissistic abuse. It's whispered about in the community because we don't want to draw fire from religious nutters. But religiosity, and just go ahead and Google religiosity and narcissism, and you'll find yourself in some dark corners of the internet where people are talking about how they walk hand in hand. It's the pink cloud and the magic wand. You don't want pink clouds, you don't want magic wands. As soon as you start drifting from reality, either as a codependent or as a narcissistic abuser, you're moving into la la land, and things are going to get pretty sick. The closer you are to reality, the healthier you are in the world. There's found an up note to end on, so I will. Non serviam, homies, just say no. Or as Zizek would say, I would prefer not to. Thank you very much for your time and your attention, and I look forward to speaking to you all again soon. Thank you.